Maine Knows How. Brought to you by A&G Shooting, Modern Woodmen of America, Mainly Handrails, Pine Grove Programs, Digital Spirit Media, and JW Parks Golf Course. Maine Knows How.
So, Bob, why? It's good to be back with you guys, and I know every season is a busy season at the Lodge and Pine Grove Programs, but maybe, Bob, you could give us a little intro as to things that are coming up with the Lodge and the program.
Great. March is prime rabbit season. People travel from all over the world to come here in March to go rabbit hunting. And it's very busy. We're rabbit hunting almost every day. And I still have a few folks coming coyote hunting. But mostly they're older folks that don't want to go on snowshoes, but still want to come with the group to go hunting. It's an important time for the Lodge and for the program. We have a tribute to service hunt every March for Malcolm Childs and Charlie Tappan and Doc Doherty. And these are all folks that came to the program and helped us over years of time. So we have a service to them.
And that is with the rabbits?
That is for the rabbits. Yep.
So anybody who's interested should really touch base with our website, find out what the rabbit hunt season looks like and what the program has to offer veterans, first responders, and law enforcement.
Yep, we have, lots of times we'll have a single or one or two veterans come along with paying customers.
Right.
But then we have a tribute to service hunt that is one-day hunt just designed to say thank you very much for these folks for helping us.
And how many people can you accommodate with those one-day hunts?
Well, on a one-day hunt, I usually, depending on the size of the group, that is a paying customers. If I have like 3 guys, I might bring 1 or 2
I see.
guys along that are veterans, policemen, or first responders. See what I mean?
And we'll coordinate that with the first responder, veteran, or law enforcement officer ahead of time so they'll understand what's going on.
They would have to call, say that they are available,
Yep.
and then we'll see where they fit in and see if the time is going to work.
So there's a lot of coordination that goes on with this, and one of the biggest issues here is that it is a free service that we're offering folks, and we certainly don't want anybody not to show up because it's free. I mean, it's all the more reason to be here. We've all had experiences with that, Wyatt.
Oh yeah, there's always someone that doesn't show up or has something come up, and that's fine when it happens.
Right.
But we do have a lot of work in coordinating, like you're talking about.
Right.
All these different events and all these different people, and so it is nice when everyone shows up.
Absolutely.
It's not free though.
No, it costs.
It costs
It costs
us.
the program and the Lodge.
Right, because if I if I have 5 guys, I'll have 2 guides go.
Right.
If I have 3 guys, only 1 guide can go.
Right.
Or has to go. See what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely. Well, we also have some other things besides rabbits going on. We still have coyotes.
We do,
Yep.
and we're still coyote hunting.
Yeah. And how many baits do we have out there right now?
Right now I have 4 out. We've taken some back in that we didn't need.
Right.
Or logging operations have moved into the area, which shut them down. Or the transportation. One of the toughest things we do in the wintertime is to travel on icy, snowy roads, meeting tractor trailers head on. And the guy driving the truck doesn't want to run anybody over either. So if it's dangerous for us or them, we will move those things and go on to a different place.
Right.
This is supposed to be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what does the typical coyote setup look like when you put a bait out there? What does the rest of this environment look like?
Well, the bait started back after the last week of black powder season. So these have been baited for a whole season. And over that time, they change. You'll have different coyotes coming at different times. And by that time of season, the coyote has played the hunter game pretty well. They're pretty sharp in March about when they're coming into a bait. So we find that late in the night is usually really good in March, where right now, earlier in the season is earlier in the night is better. But we can, when it's really cold, we'll see them in the day.
And when it is really cold, I mean, we have shacks for the hunters to be in that are heated.
Right.
But I think we've talked about before how important it is to be quiet and have the sound discipline and the light, most importantly, the light discipline when you're out there, because these coyotes are
Sharp.
they're very sharp.
And these roads, we plow ourselves. I mean, I'm plowing miles of woods roads for the whole winter,
Right.
which is a big expense for breaking plows, breaking trucks, and getting stuck. Sometimes you try to do things that is difficult, and you're in the woods 10 miles by yourself.
But you never get stuck.
Oh, yeah, I do.
There's a reason why the tow rope is permanently in the truck.
In the truck.
Yeah.
Does the truck have a winch or no?
No, it has a plow.
It has a plow.
Yeah. And see, some of the people we have to be able to walk in or have easy access.
Yeah.
We have places where people with wheelchairs can get in, so it has to be plowed right to the door. And some I can just drop off and say, you can just walk down this road, and I'll take the snowmobile or ATV and pack it down so it's hard walking. So he's not walking snow up to his knee.
The takeaway is that the program in the lodge can accommodate people with a desire to do this hunting. Even though they may feel they're limited, we will accommodate to the best of our ability to get everybody out there who wants to have that experience. And again, as you've said before, Bob, it's not about shooting a coyote. It's about going coyote hunting.
They probably aren't getting one.
Right.
We just might as well say that right now. Because these guys are sharp, and a new hunter that just started struggles because he makes little teeny mistakes. And it took us 25 years of hunting these things to learn all these little things.
Right. And we'll have a guest later on in the show that will talk about some of his early experience and after he had a little bit more experience, what's going on with coyoting. But March is also ice fishing season still in Maine.
It is, and it's nice time.
Yeah, the sun's up.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's getting warmer.
The late season, the northern pike are getting ready to breed in April, and they're full of roe, and it's one of the heaviest times of the year. If you're looking for a state record, March is a good time to fish.
And where do you go for that state record?
Well, there's lots of the places in Belgrade that have good places, and southern Maine have some good places. Yeah. But they're full of roe, and a fish can weigh a lot more. They can have, 10 pounds of eggs in them.
Yeah. I've bumped into state biologists on Messalonsky Lake, and they tell me that as soon as the ice goes out, they go out and net the pike to check the health of the fish and the size.
Right.
And I said, well, what's the biggest one that you've caught? They said, I won't tell you. And I'm like, what do you mean you won't tell me? I said, are they big? He says, oh, they're big. I said, are they state records? Oh, yeah, they're state records. So Messalonsky, especially at the southern end, where there's the sand beds, 15 feet of water, a lot of good fish in March for pike. And we have the program has a derby for that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but a lot of these lakes have good places.
Yes.
A lot of things where they breed. The lake, every one of these lakes has certain places where they breed, and they'll move into that area. And they're aggressive feeders in March because they're not going to feed while they're breeding. So it's a good time to fish.
Right. It's been my experience that the trout, that real sport fishing kind of declines because as you've told me, the water is losing its oxygen and they're slowing down.
Right.
But the pike are different.
Yeah. So
That's
a
awesome.
good time to go.
And then we have the great sign of spring coming in Maine every year, which is the Sportsman Show.
Exactly, and we've been doing shows all over the country for the program. And we have a show in Augusta that's put on by the Maine Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine and the Maine Sportsmen, and we go there, and there's a lot of people there, and we're hoping to make new connections with new people so we can take them some of the experiences that might not have had.
Right. And the program has a booth there.
They do.
And we'll be raffling off, selling raffles for a rifle. And you'll have the lodge will have a booth there.
No, not the lodge this year.
Okay.
But just the program.
Just the
and
program.
then Wyatt will have a booth there with his.
I have a custom rod building
Yes, I
company,
was
so
going to
I'll be
ask
there
you.
with the program.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Wyatt is an up and coming rod builder, and it's just not fly rods.
No, it's all kind of rods.
Right.
Yeah, I'm doing ice rods right now, and then once I get closer to April and open water fishing, I'll start doing more and more like trolling rods.
Hey, when you say ice rod, you mean like a
jigging
jig?
rod. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I have all different kinds of colors, all different kinds of threads, and probably 15, 20 different kinds of handle pieces. So you basically, I work you through whatever you want and however you want to make it, and then I make it for you. And
So somebody can show up to the Sportsman Show at the Augusta Civic Center in March and basically have a little conversation, and you'll build a custom rod for them.
yeah, it would. And I'll probably have a lot of the choices that I have for those rods
Right.
available there, so you can actually look at them, feel them, figure out which ones you want, and then we'll make a note which ones you want, and then those will be the ones that go on your rod.
And, I want to jump ahead a little bit too, because there's also something that I plan on getting some family members who are veterans and first responders involved with you. Is that you do offer a 3-day weekend type of thing where folks can come here to the lodge and build their own rod?
Yeah.
With
So,
you?
I'm doing two, one in early May, one in late May, where you'll come in on a Friday. We'll get some stuff together. We'll do some introductions. You get to choose most of your pieces. Saturday, we build the rod. Late Saturday afternoon, we put the epoxy on. We start drying it. And then on Sunday, late Sunday morning, we actually go on a 6-hour guided fishing trip with the rod you built the day before. And we can go
Right.
catch some native brook trout from these remote trout ponds that are around the lodge.
Right. That to me is the complete package, because you're showing up, you're making something, you're gonna have that rod and be able to say, I made it, and I took it fishing, and then you're taking them
Yeah.
to these remote ponds. What kind of experience is that? Who gets to do that?
Right.
Never
Never heard of it before.
No, I just think I'm really jazzed about that.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
One thing, Bob.
Sorry. This year, the Sportsman Show, we had to move it, and it's now in April.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That's great. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes with Maine Knows How. And by the way, if you have questions, please feel free to email us at mainknowshow@gmail.com. We'll answer your questions. We look forward to hearing from you just with any suggestions and improvements or questions in general about what we're talking about. So we'll be back in a few minutes.
Maine Knows How is brought to you by Modern Woodmen of America, a member-owned fraternal financial services organization since 1883. J.W. Parks Golf Course in Pittsfield, a 9-hole facility with a full-service pro shop and driving range offering daily fee golf and membership opportunities.
Welcome back to Maine Knows How. Our special guest this week is Gerry Lavigne. He's a state biologist who studied deer primarily for over 30 years here in the state of Maine. And he's going to come and lay some knowledge on us about coyote hunting in March, as well as the deer population in March, and what these deer are going through. There's no hunting for deer in March, but physically what they're going through and where their health is. So, Gerry, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Gerry, what's going on with deer in the March timeframe, and how have they gotten through winter?
Well, by the time March comes around, they've already experienced a good 8 weeks of winter. They're losing weight in a typical Maine winter, and that has impacts on their movements. They tend to reduce their movements in wintering areas and restricted to a fairly small area. The does are entering their third trimester of pregnancy, so come April and May, they're really needing to put on calories, take in calories to nourish their growing fetuses, and so with against all of this backdrop, they're on a poor diet. So March is probably one of the worst times for deer nutritionally, and unfortunately, it's one of the best times for coyotes to kill deer. Coyotes sense that weakness. They sense the lack of mobility in deer, and coyotes really focus on wintering areas at this time and are quite successful during many years.
So, Gerry, I've always heard about deer yards and how deer will come together. Is this when that happens, or in the March, or is it in the winter?
The deer movement to yards, what yards are forest types that reduce the snow depth and reduce the wind impact. They're typically mature spruce, fir, cedar, hemlock forests, and they don't comprise a large amount of the landscape. In Maine currently, our deer are wintering on about 5% of the landscape, so it's a pretty special habitat, and it's one that warrants protection by the state and landowners. So in these wintering areas, deer are concentrated sometimes as much as 100 or more deer per square mile, because when you think about it, they've gone from full use of the range in November and October down to probably 5% of it. And so they're concentrated. That helps the deer to make trails and maintain mobility, but it also produces a real opportunity for coyotes to work the herd and be able to take the weaker ones. And when snow is deep, then coyotes can also take virtually any deer that gets bogged down off the trail.
So the snow impacts the deer
Very much so.
more than the coyote.
So in a winter with a lot of deep, soft snow, the deer take it on the chin. And a more moderate winter with lesser snow depths, it's not such a problem.
The coyote in particular, do they have certain techniques of how they go about going after the deer this time of year?
Coyotes are more effective at killing deer when there are two coyotes or more involved rather than single ones. And they're pretty clever about it because they can get into a chase situation where they pursue a deer for a long time and a deer weakens, another coyote comes around and begins to attack it from the front. The worst thing that can happen to a deer is to jump off the trail and get bogged down so that it can no longer kick, run, or defend itself. At that point, it's toast. So
do the coyote try to separate the deer from the herd?
Yeah, they do, and sometimes it may be a deer that's particularly weakened.
Right.
Other times it may simply be a fairly healthy young of the year, a button buck or doe that just doesn't have the experience to know what to do when being chased.
So is this why sometimes in March, sitting over an active bait, the bait goes dry? Because these coyotes are now spending time in the yards and feeding on these deer in the deer yards, not so much needed to come to a coyote bait.
Absolutely, Bob. And in fact, if you look at the entire expanse of winter, on the baits, I operate 4 baits. I bait them year round myself. And I know when the coyotes are on deer because my baits go dead. March, February, doesn't matter, it's a snow conditions. It's also true, if you bait year round, I can tell with like clockwork when the fawn drop occurs because my baits go dead in the end of June or in the month of June, the end of May until mid-July.
Yep,
And that's because the coyotes are working the fawn crop.
exactly.
Now, one interesting thing that occurs between during the denning period for coyotes, coyote breeding season is primarily February. They have their pups 63 or so days later, generally mid-April. And at that time, the female stays with those pups for a good 3 weeks and does nothing but nurse them. The male and possibly another subordinate coyote is out there finding food for those 3 weeks, but it's not real intense for them. 3 weeks into the pup rearing period, those pups need to get solid food. And so now everything kicks into high gear,
Right.
and these coyotes are scrambling to find enough food for these growing pups. There could be 4, there could be 9. Litter size varies quite a bit with coyotes. And I found that one of the best times to hunt coyotes is in early May to the end of May because the fawn drop has not occurred yet, and there are snowshoe rabbits around and young snowshoe rabbits, but coyotes are very hungry, very eager to come to bait at that time. And then, as I said, just like clockwork at the fawn drop, no more hunting till mid-July. For me.
Me too. I noticed the exact same thing. That's why I
Yeah.
asked that question, because people that might be listening to this might have the same problem. I'm sure they do, and say, I wonder why. That's why I was hoping you could share that with them.
With March coyotes, from a management standpoint, one of the best times for people to hunt and take coyotes out of the population is in March. And there are 2 things going on. The pups from the year before, if they haven't dispersed yet, are going to be kicked out of the social group by the mated pair because they want to focus on their pups in April. So you get these young coyotes that are now a year old, some of them 2 years old, that are out there and they're hunting for the first time. They're vulnerable and they can be taken. And any coyote anytime you can reduce the coyote population before that fawn drop in June, it's a good thing.
So Gerry, I mean, as far as the coyote overall population, has that been rising or falling or staying the same?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but
Okay.
the other part of this is you now have in March a pregnant female coyote and her mate, and if you happen to kill that female before she whelps, you've eliminated an entire litter for the year. If you kill the adult male tending her at that time, she's going to have a very difficult time being able to wean those pups because her provider's gone. So March is a critical time, not only because deer are vulnerable, but because it's one of the best times to whittle down the coyote population. We have a lot of coyotes in Maine, and we'll always have a lot of coyotes in Maine. But where people like me, Bob, and others are focusing on removing coyotes from the population, we are having a difference. And we can see that over time with the response from deer, in the hunting registrations and that type of thing, it makes a difference. And when you take a large number of coyotes from an area, they don't repopulate immediately like the propagandists who are anti-hunting will want to tell you. It actually takes a year or two for that to happen. There was an interesting study way back in the mid-80s, just north of here, across the Quebec border, in the Armstrong Deer Yard. That deer yard at the time was about a full square mile, 600 plus acres, full of deer. A lot of those deer summer in Maine. So I had quite a lot of interest in the results of this. They decided to remove coyotes in Quebec to try to help the herd in that yard. And the biologists there focused on summertime. They only caught 17 coyotes out of that area, but they collapsed the population because of the same reason. Young pups are need to be tended, and when you remove that number of coyotes, it has an impact. The following year, there was a 60% reduction in coyote population in that deer yard, and it took 2 to 3 years for them to come back. Another example of how knocking the coyote population down can help. The Fish and Wildlife Department in Maine has a program, largely thanks to Sam, to reduce coyotes, and sometimes they're very effective at it. In this one instance, it was the Pittston Farm Deer Yard, 5,000 acre deer yard on the northwest shore, Moosehead Lake area. They had some dog hunters come in, and in the course of a few weeks, the dog hunters removed 54 coyotes from that area. The department deployed those dog hunters a second year. They had trouble finding a coyote.
Really?
Yeah. And so it takes time to rebuild a population of coyotes. But in that interim, the deer are benefiting.
Now, it's open season on coyote year round?
Yes, thankfully. And that was threatened in the legislature a year ago, but way back in the early 70s, the Maine legislature realized that coyotes are a problem for deer survival. And their solution was to use hunting as a means to control coyotes to the degree possible. And they recognized correctly that you have to hunt them year round. So they passed a law that said we can kill coyotes in daylight year round, Sundays excluded. We can't hunt anything on Sunday in Maine.
For instance, in our town, 10 years ago, we shot 70 deer in a season. This year here, over 240 deer were killed.
Wow.
That's because we hunt coyotes in this area, not just me, and there's other people that do as well. So we definitely had an effect on these animals and how many people are coming here. We're filling restaurants, we're filling hotels, where people are coming here because we have deer now.
Yeah.
And it's because of these coyote hunters.
It's a real economic driver, and
It really is.
and deer hunting in Maine has always been an economic force for rural economies in Maine.
Right.
And any way we can improve on that is going to help.
Right. I mean, there's struggle. People struggle in the lodging industry and the hotel industry, and this really makes a big difference. Do I want to come to Maine or do I want to go to Ohio? The price is the same. And
Right.
if we don't do something to help ourselves, then it ain't going to be here.
So Gerry, what for somebody who's not real familiar with coyotes, how big are they, and what size packs do they run in? And you've got a little prop there too that I'm interested in.
This is a pelt from about a 35-pound coyote.
Huh.
I just did an article on this for the Sam News, so the information is fresh. There have been studies in which coyote weight has been recorded in the early 1970s. In fact, when I was a grad student, and the first date I had with my wife of almost 50 years now was skinning, doing body measurements and food habits.
What a
on coyotes,
romantic
so
guy.
I don't know how she stayed with me. At that time in the 70s, they established that the average male was about 34, 35 pounds. The average female is about 3 or 4 pounds smaller than that. But there's a range. And in the 2000s, there was another study, and another 100 coyotes were weighed, and they found about the same weights. Since about 2010, two different organizations in Maine have been holding coyote contests. And the vicinity of Lincoln, Springfield, that part of Penobscot and northern Washington County, they've held a contest for coyotes for 14 years now. Aroostook County also has one centered in Presque Isle, but they really cover all of Aroostook. Between the two contests, 150 coyotes a year in each place are shot and weighed. So we've got now, I have the records of over 2,000 coyotes that have been taken. The biggest male we've ever gotten in these contests is 52 pounds. And that only happened once. These contests have a $200 prize for the biggest male, biggest female. The biggest male, all but 1 year, in both places, has been 42 to 48 pounds. The biggest female, 38 to about 48 pounds. How small do they get? A lot of coyotes are taken that represent late-born pups, and this can be a function of killing coyotes in February and a female rebreeding and having a late litter. The smallest coyote that was weighed was 13 pounds. Males, the average weight from this very large database also came out around 33, 34 pounds for males, and in our case, 29 pounds for females. It seems like since the 70s and 80s, the average weight for coyotes has actually gone down a little bit. And with 2,000 records, I'm absolutely confident that data are accurate. So what's happening? When you intensively, and over time, Maine coyotes are coming under more and more removal pressure. When you intensively remove any animal from a population, this works for deer or moose, it works for fox, it works for coyote. You get rid of the older breeders, the older, larger ones, and you have more youngsters in the population. And the fact that coyote weights have come down in this most latest data set suggests that there is an impact from coyote hunting and trapping on what the population of coyotes would be if there were no hunting or trapping at all. We have a lot of coyotes, but we'd have a heck of a lot more if there were no hunting and trapping.
I've always heard how difficult it is to actually get a shot on a coyote because they're so, I don't know, Bob, why, what do you?
It's really smart. They're cagey.
Smart. They're cagey.
Wily coyote.
Yeah. Is it their sight? Is it their smell? Is it their hearing? Is it everything?
It's all of the above. And coyotes know that man is dangerous because population-wise, they experience other coyotes being killed. They experience things that make them wary of man. I'm old enough now to know when coyotes were first coming here. I did my graduate work just up the river from here, up the Dead River, in the Hayden Brook Deer Yard. My master's project was studying the impact of snowmobiling on deer, and I spent 3 entire winters and summers in that area in the woods. It was great. I remember 2 different times when I was walking into my study site. I would take a canoe downriver about 6 miles and then walk into the Grand Falls area. And this couple times, I was aware of being watched. I looked around behind me on the old tote road, and there's a coyote.
No kidding.
That coyote had absolutely no fear of me. And I don't think it was acting aggressively, and I didn't have a gun or anything anyway, but it was curious because
Right.
it probably had never seen a man before.
Interesting.
Or a
But
man
that-
boy. I was just 20. But over time,
Right.
that's all changed. So it's because of that, coyotes are extremely wary. Now bait. Bob puts out deer rib cages, moose heads, hides, butcher scraps, beaver, all of that stuff are coyote food. But where it's put, coyotes know that's a dangerous spot. And so they're going to be wary of using it, and they're going to pick their time when they feel that it's most advantageous or safest for them to come to the bait.
I've come, Jerry, to putting 2 baits out on one place. One closer to the shack that he has to come to the open, and then one further back that he can get to easily. And to
Yeah.
allow him to come out when he normally just wouldn't. So you're constantly playing with these guys. They're a clever character.
Yeah. And but the thing of it is, it's absorbing and fun
Yeah.
to figure
Right.
it out and to succeed. I also, part of my experience comes at a time when the department had a coyote removal program using snares, lethal neck snares on coyotes, and individuals would be certified to go around deer yards and snare coyotes. Snaring was so much more efficient than hunting over bait.
No
Well,
kidding.
but not more efficient than hunting with dogs, but you can kill a lot of coyotes in a short amount of time with very little hardware with a snare. That program ended as soon as the feds listed the links, and then the department was threatened to be sued, and of course they chickened out and closed the program.
Because of potential snaring some other animal other than
And
the coyote.
that's when baiting and the use of dogs eventually came into more use. When I retired from the department in 2005, less than a year later, I hitched my wagon to the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine, and I've been their wildlife advisor, consultant. For a while, I was on the board as well. And throughout all that time, from 2006 to the present, one of the things we focused on with Sam is to try to get people interested in coyote hunting. And we, for example, through seminars that Bob would hold at the Maine Sportsman Show, and a seminar that we held just for coyote hunters at SAM. I wrote a book, a primer on coyote hunting that would help people understand how to get into coyote hunting and that type of thing. So we've placed a lot of focus on growing the hunting sport of coyote hunting. And I think it's grown all on its own as well. And there's a whole industry involved with calls and different types of rifle scopes and all kinds of equipment. Driveway alarms are, right, people are buying driveway alarms to alert us when coyotes are there. That all enters into the economy
Right.
as well. And that all helps to know when the coyote's there and when it's the best time to hunt.
The only time I've really seen a coyote in the wild, so to speak, is during ice fishing season when people are catching a pike and they're
Yeah.
just throwing it on the ice. And I've seen them make a dash right out of the woods to get that pike and drag it back into the woods. And there's a lot of dogs with people fishing, so it's been some interesting
I'll bet.
situations that I've seen. But Gerry, we really we thank you for your insight. We hope that to get you back and talk
Good.
about the deer and coyote again in the future. But really, thank you very much.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
Really, thank you for the 30 years you put into helping to preserve the deer population and bring these insights into the coyotes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, great. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Maine Knows How is brought to you by Pine Grove Programs, supporting veterans, first responders, and law enforcement by providing free outdoor opportunities to those who serve, have served, and their families. And by Mainly Handrails, serving New England with custom metal fabrication since 2005, catering to both residential and commercial. No job is too big or too small. Proud to be a Maine business employing Maine people, offering quality metal products made in the USA.
Welcome back to Maine Knows How. It is now the fabled tip of the week with Wyatt.
Yeah, so the tip of this week is all about snow conditions. And over a day in March, the snow changes a lot. And there's a lot of different kinds of snow, but during this time of the year, or during the beginning of part of the day, it's really hard snow. And so snowshoes wise, you only need a small shoe to carry your weight on that hard packed snow. Over the day though, March is getting warmer, the day gets warmer, and that snow starts holding less and less weight. And what happens is you start needing larger snowshoes during the same day. The small snowshoe that kept you up during the morning, by lunch, you might be sinking to your knee, and by the end of the day, you're sinking even further. So over the day, you might need 3 different pairs of snowshoes to carry your weight on top of that snow. And those are just some of the things that you got to think about when you're going out.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach to snowshoeing.
No, everything's changing over the day, and that's something you have to keep in mind. So that's would be my tip, is just to keep in mind the snow conditions and how they change over the day.
Right.
And then, so now we're going to go into my dad's story. I think he has a good story, and I believe it involves Gerry. So
I believe it might.
Yeah. It's a pretty unique story. And,
This is true.
It is absolutely true.
Okay.
And back years ago, Gerry and I started a coyote school, and we taught people here how to hunt coyotes. And they would come for a weekend, and we had baited sites up, and Gerry would share all his knowledge about it and different guns and all this stuff. So we did this, and then in the evening, we went on a hunt. So we put the people out, and then Gerry sat on the shack. And that was good. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I went and picked up everybody. And Gerry was the last one. So I drove down there, and it was quite a walk out, almost a mile out. He had to walk on a snowmobile track to get out. And he said to me, first thing, "I messed up, Bob." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, I was sitting there, and a coyote came, and he didn't get to the bait, and he was messing around there. And I shot him, and he went around in circles and took off." So I went down there looking for him, but I didn't have the right light to do that with. So we'll go back in the morning and look for him. So that's what we did. Anything I can add, Gerry?
No, you're.
Pretty close?
Let's come back. In the morning, it was very revealing what that coyote had done.
Exactly. We walked down there, and we walked to where the coyote went in the woods, where we thought it was hard-packed. And we really couldn't find a track. So we walked all over there. We found a dead deer.
Yeah.
No blood, though, from the coyote?
None.
Huh.
So we said, we don't know what happened to him. He couldn't find no blood. So we were walking back out, and we were on the front side of the bait, and we see a drop of blood. And we said, Gerry, you said the coyote was on the other side. He said, yeah. I said, well, there's a drop of blood here. And then there's another one there. And there's another one there. So we followed those drops of blood all the way to the shack where Gerry was sitting. Okay?
Who's being hunted here?
Oh, my goodness.
So we looked up to the shack. We said, where the heck did he go? We started following him. That coyote followed him a mile all the way to the road.
After he left the shack?
After he
A
left the shack.
wounded coyote,
Yeah.
and turns out it was a female, was hit in the shoulder with a non-lethal wound. And then a month later,
We shot her on another bait.
another school, another set of hunters, 2 miles from this base.
2 or 3 miles, yeah.
Guy shoots a coyote with a healing wound.
I think she was a little pissed at you.
And what did we name her, Bob?
Cujo.
Since she's a female, it was Coyote.
Cujo.
In honor of
imagine?
that Stephen King movie.
Tracked him down. Followed his tracks for over a mile.
goodness.
Wounded. She wanted to know what the heck hit me.
Well, you know,
That's a pretty good one.
Bob, Gerry, you guys have been in the Maine woods for probably 300 or 400 years. It seems like, with stories that are true that go back a time. But thanks. I think at this point in time, we'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks.
Maine Knows How is brought to you by A&G Shooting, a brick-and-mortar gun shop offering firearms training and 100% customer satisfaction. And by Digital Spirit Media, providing over 30 years of technical expertise in media production and event production services.
Welcome back to Maine Knows How. Really appreciate you watching the show. Please subscribe and like us. You can check us out on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, and YouTube. Go to our website at maineknowshow.com, and you can email us with any questions you might have at maineknowshow at gmail.com. And this is a lot of information for an old guy. But if you do ask a good question, we are giving prizes, so keep us in mind and reach out to us with those questions and check us out on our website. With that, I'll wind up this segment, and we'll see you next time on Maine Knows How.
Maine Knows How, brought to you by A&G Shooting, Modern Woodmen of America, Mainly Handrails, Pine Grove Programs, Digital Spirit Media, and J.W. Parks Golf Course. Maine Knows How